Greetings and salutations, everybody. I'm Scojo in 360, and guess what? As of now, you're fully immersed in the Grand Canyon. Now, this is 8K full 360 video, which means you can look up, down, left, right. You can become fully immersed in every moment. Now, while this was shot and rendered in 8K, not all browsers will show it in 8K, so check your settings to make sure they're in the highest resolution possible. This is definitely an experience that you'll want to get the most out of. And I'll be your guide. Right now, we're at Lee's Ferry in Arizona, where most Grand Canyon rafting adventures begin. But coming up, I'm going to take you to some amazing places. From indigenous history to natural wonders, beachside accommodations. I'll even show you the great unconformity where over 1 billion years of the rock record has gone missing. We'll even run a little epic whitewater. Alright, settle in, look around, let's get this adventure started. Fully immersed in the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon really has been nature's ultimate construction project. The Colorado River has been this unstoppable force, a natural bulldozer carving out layer after layer of rock over what's estimated to be 5 to 6 million years. If you look at the top of this passing island on the left, you'll see evidence of how high this river could actually run. The logs up top were left behind from a flash flood event that used to be somewhat common prior to the river being dammed starting in the early 20th century. It's like the Earth's timeline on display. Each rock layer is a different chapter. And while the water is eroding the river down, the Earth is actually lifting up too, producing these amazing rock walls, many of them tinted red by the iron content in the sediment. One of the most mind-blowing pieces of erosive evidence over the millennia is what we're approaching now, the world-famous Red Wall Cavern. Thousands upon thousands of years of flash floods slammed into the bend in the river, eroding the walls and leaving behind huge boulders, ancient fossils, and sediment that eventually led to this amazing natural amphitheater. We'll pause here for a moment for you to look around and soak this place up. The bends in the walls revealed that this exact spot, thousands of years ago, was a wild maelstrom of spinning water, rocks, and sand, whereas now it's a great place to relax and take in nature. And a drum circle, which if you haven't noticed, they're sitting near the walls in the back. Yeah, Mother Nature's power is really on full display in the Grand Canyon, from the natural land bridge that you see off to the right there, to the massive canyon walls that often reach thousands of feet into the air. But it was largely because of these extreme conditions that native tribes mainly kept out of the canyon. But the delta in the river ahead of us, well, that's the first indicator that we're approaching the most awesome display of indigenous presence in the canyon. They're what is called the Nankoweap Granaries. For the unfamiliar, the Nankoweap Granaries are an archaeological site located in the Grand Canyon National Park. The granaries are ancient storage structures built by the ancestral Puebloans, a prehistoric Native American culture around 1100 AD. They're situated on this cliff face high above us near the confluence of the Nankoweap Creek, which gives the site its name. The granaries are perched about 500 feet above the Colorado River, offering strategic vantage points and sweeping views of the canyon. Just wait until we get to the top. But if you haven't already, remember, keep looking around, soaking up this amazing view. The granaries are made from local stone and mortar, showcasing the advanced masonry skills of the ancestral Puebloans. The structures were built into natural alcoves in the cliff face, providing protection from the elements. Now, these granaries were used to store surplus crops, mainly corn, beans, and squash, which were staple foods for the ancestral Puebloans. If you go down to the delta below you, there's actually some ruins that still remain from this culture. They were a farming tribe and made use of what land there was and the occasional floods to help them grow crops. But as we all know, food doesn't last forever. Not only did these people not have refrigeration, they also had to deal with the creatures and critters who were just as interested in a free meal as the ancient Puebloans were in making sure they could feed their families. Now is the time to really take advantage of this Ultra HD 360 video footage. It's breathtaking, up and down, left and right. Imagine the amount of work the ancient Puebloans had to go through to not only make this climb, but with pounds and pounds of grains on their backs.
Anything in there? You guys can go up and get close and look at them.
Alright, at this point, my weakness with heights gives way to me handing my camera over to my friend Jamie to get a look inside. Are you ready?
There we go.
Welcome to 1100 AD, my friends. In modern times, there are still several tribes living in the area, including the Havasupai, Hualapai, Hopi, Kaibab, Navajos, Zunis, and Paiutes, all of which consider the next stop on our journey a sacred place. To me, it's just plain beautiful. Perhaps the most visually striking stop throughout the entire trip. Now, before we arrive at our next destination, I want to tell you a little bit about the Powell expedition of 1869. It's the first known circumnavigation of the Grand Canyon by humans. John Wesley Powell and his crew, by the time they reached this area, had already suffered a loss of one of their boats and a large chunk of their rations. Morale was very low, and many began to wonder if they could even continue. But upon arriving at our next destination, at least Powell, who was a geologist by training, began to realize just how amazing of a place the Grand Canyon truly was. Alright, time to have some fun and frankly blow your mind a little bit. We've arrived at the confluence of the Little Colorado River and the main Colorado River, and a little side hike with a big payoff is about to begin. Now there's a lot going on here. First, the hard line of turquoise and green is created by the density differences in the water. The Little Colorado is much warmer, thus less dense, and so what you're seeing is where warm meets cold. One of the most remarkable features of the Little Colorado River is its brilliant turquoise blue color. Now this is caused by dissolved calcium carbonate from the limestone formations it flows through, including the Blue and Sipapu springs, which also warms up the water. The contrast of colors is intoxicating here, and if you look upriver, you'll see a raft mate taking advantage of our side trip payoff by grabbing his life vest and floating through the warm turquoise-tinted rapids. But what kind of 360 video host would I be if I didn't take the opportunity to give you a chance to know what it's like to float these rapids? Grab your life vest, the water's warm, the sun is hot, and this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Our guide Emily will give you a few basic instructions, and then it's down we go. Now for me, this is what makes 360 video so unique. How much more in the moment can you get with a video camera? Alright, a quick break for lunch and we're underway. And what better way to end this chapter than a little dose of whitewater and a big dose of the Grand Canyon scenery. Are you ready? I think maybe it's time to find a place to beach the rafts for the night, feed our bellies and dry our clothes and get ready for a big day tomorrow. Gather round, folks, as the fire crackles and the smell of kettle coffees filling the morning air. Let me take you back in time to the year of our Lord, 1869, when a ragtag crew of adventurers set out on a journey that would make history. It was dangerous and many thought foolhardy, but in the end, it was the first known circumnavigation of the Grand Canyon by humans. His name was John Wesley Powell, a former soldier, geologist, and a man who, though he'd lost his arm in the Civil War, had the spirit of an explorer that burned brighter than most. Powell dreamed of navigating the wild, untamed Colorado River through a place that few white men had ever seen. A land of towering cliffs, dangerous waterfalls, and mysteries that no human hands, including indigenous tribes, had etched into a map. So Powell and 9 men set off from Green River Station in Wyoming on the 24th of May, 1869. They loaded 4 boats with provisions and scientific instruments, enough to last them for months, and then cast themselves into the rushing currents of the Green River, much like what we're doing now on the Colorado. While the whitewater here is not severe, this is one of the most technical parts of the river for our guide Emily. She's working overtime, raising and lowering the engine, hitting the gas and backing off, all to make sure we don't hit that island in the middle of the river. Now imagine trying to do this with a rowboat. Good job, Emily. Powell and his crew knew very little of what lay ahead, but they would soon discover the unforgiving nature of the river and the canyon it carved. Now, the first few weeks, they were met with rapids stronger than they expected, smashing their boats into rocks and drenching their supplies. Early on, they lost one of their 4 boats containing precious cargo, including food rations, all of it sinking to the bottom. Day by day, mile by mile, the canyon walls just grew higher. The red and ochre hues gleamed in the sun as if the earth itself had sliced open to reveal its secrets. They'd camp at night with the roar of rapids in their ears, unsure if tomorrow would bring smooth water or deadly torrents. The men eventually grew restless and weary. They were starving, their boats were damaged, until one day they found themselves at the biggest rapids they'd encountered thus far. And after months of hardship, 3 men, Bill Dunn and brothers Armel and Seneca Howland, decided that enough was enough. They didn't trust the river anymore and believed their best chance of survival came in climbing out of the canyon and finding help. Powell tried to convince them to stay, but their minds were set. So they parted ways, and the 3 set out into the wilderness above. Powell and his remaining crew decided that dying trying was better than the alternative. So they took on the suicidal rapid, not far from where we are now, and held on for dear life. Unlike us, who got to run this rapid with the safety of a sturdy boat and an experienced guide. Powell's boats were made of wood and weighed about 800 pounds each. They were not well suited for the extreme rapids. Thankfully, Powell and his crew, waterlogged and half-drowned, did manage to survive the rapids. So they fired their guns into the air, trying to alert the men who had abandoned the camp that they should come back. But sadly, the men were never heard from again. And just days later, Powell and his crew emerged out of the canyon and back to safety. Of the canyon, Powell once said, "The wonders of the Grand Canyon cannot be adequately represented in symbols of speech nor by speech itself. The resources of graphic art are taxed beyond their powers, and attempting to portray its features, language and illustration combined, must fail." All right, we're past the halfway point, and that means it's time to take a quick breather from learning and just experience the Grand Canyon. Remember, this will be as close as many of you will get to the real thing, so buckle up and take advantage of the 360 view. The next stop on our immersive journey through the Grand Canyon may arguably be its most impressive from a big picture standpoint. It's called the Great Unconformity, which makes it sound pretty epic. But in a bizarre twist, from the outside, it's contained in a fairly average, nondescript looking slot canyon. But it's what's inside that will truly blow your mind. You are about to go back in time to an era when only single-celled organisms ruled the Earth. Humans weren't even a gleam in God's eye. But I'm a meteorologist, so I think this would best be explained by our geologist guide, Sue.
At this location, we have the Great Unconformity. Actually, it's not only at this location, this is just a great exposure of the Great Unconformity. And an unconformity is a gap in the rock record. So Mother Earth is laying down sediments and stuff, and Father Time is coming along and occasionally eroding some of the sediments away. And then Mother Earth continues to bake her layer cake of layers and layers. And you guys have seen a whole bunch of the Paleozoic rocks and hints of the Precambrian sedimentary rocks. And we have also reached the basement rocks of North America.
Okay.
So the unconformities or gaps in the rock record. So time was still occurring, it's just that the rock is missing at that interval. This location is exposing the Great Unconformity, which there's actually 1.2 billion years of rock record missing. So you know that the Vishnu schist and the Zoroaster granite, the basement rocks here, are 1.75 billion years old. And the overlying Tapete sandstone at this location is 505 to 515 million years old. And the contact, the little line between the two, represents a gap in the rock record at this location of more than 1.2 billion years. But you have hints of what occurred during that 1.2 billion years, because Roy and Pam hiked up to the Chuar group, which is 700 to 900 million years old rock record. We also went through the 1 billion year old Cardenas basalt and Dock sandstone, which is another little hint. And then other locations in the west give a hint of what was occurring that time, even though Father Time might have eroded some of Mother Earth's record at this location. But you can get up close and put your hand across that 1.2 billion year gap in the rock record, right there. And this is in most geology textbooks, beginning textbooks, and is one of the prime examples. So you run into a geologist around the world and go, hey man, I've been to the exposure of great unconformity of Blacktail Canyon. And then you can also have, and the geologist that showed us put her lips across the Explore it, touch it.
The Great Unconformity helps reveal the Grand Canyon's complex geological history. It shows how the region experienced cycles of mountain building, erosion, and sea encroachment over hundreds of millions of years. For the Powell expedition of 1869, exploring this kind of dramatic ancient landscape must have been awe-inspiring, even if they didn't fully understand the geological story behind it. Alright, it'd be remiss of me if I didn't leave you with some of the highlights you'll see on a trip down the Grand Canyon. And the first one starts by looking up. You're now passing under the Navajo Bridge. Well, two bridges really. One was built in 1929, and the parallel bridge, designed to look just like the other, was built in 1995 to handle vehicle traffic, while the original was turned into a pedestrian-only bridge. Next up, there are hundreds of side hikes within the canyon that come with some pretty amazing payoffs, and one of these side trips offered an experience that I just couldn't resist, and I want you to be able to experience it as well. Let's set the scene. It's 95 degrees out, the sun is beating down on you, and you're seeking refuge from the heat. Well, I've got an immersive video camera, and it's waterproof, so ladies and gentlemen, experience for yourself what it's like to stand under a waterfall in the Grand Canyon and soak it all in. Don't forget to look up. If you loved our earlier stop at the Little Colorado River, you'll love the hike up Havasu Canyon. Havasu Canyon is home to the Havasupai people who have lived in the region for over 800 years, known as the people of the blue-green waters. Havasu Creek cuts through the canyon, bringing with it some calcium carbonate-filled waters like what we saw on the Little Colorado. While this side trip doesn't include shooting rapids, the myriad of pools along the way make you feel like you've stepped into Mother Nature's spa for a mineral treatment. Our next stop has a tinge of intrigue and adventure. Just off the Colorado River lies Pumpkin Springs. It's named for its unusual pumpkin-like shape and orange hue, which resembles a giant carved pumpkin sitting on the edge of the river. The waters of Pumpkin Springs contain high levels of toxic minerals, including arsenic and lead, making it unsafe for prolonged exposure. So, while you can't feel the rush of jumping into Pumpkin Springs, many an adventurous traveler can climb just a bit higher and feel the rush of jumping into the Colorado River.
Woo! Nicely done.
Taking a raft trip through the Grand Canyon can take from 8 days to multiple weeks depending on your mode of transportation. Thankfully, there are a myriad of relaxing camp spots along the way that look like they were created to be a movie set. Thousands, even millions of years of erosion and formation greet you every night. In what became my favorite campsite of this trip, the massive layers of sandstone surrounded us on every side. The soft sand beach serving as a base camp for grilled steaks and Dutch oven cobbler that evening, leading to some amazing stargazing at night. And what kind of immersive trip host would I be if I didn't give you a chance to know what it feels like to take a trip up to Mother Nature's lavatory and enjoy some of the most scenic places to drop the kids off at the pool as you'll find on Earth? Okay, that may have been TMI, but you're in the Grand Canyon for God's sake. Well, we're nearing the final adventure of our trip. We've made it over 250 miles and experienced things that just can't be experienced anywhere else on the planet. And with the spying of that jet boat over there, it's time to pack up our gear and load up for the final leg of this amazing adventure. Friendships have been made and existing friendships have grown stronger. A trip like this has a way of making us all feel humble and in awe. But I promised you one last adventure, right? Well, folks, I leave you with a high-speed jet boat trip through the remaining part of the canyon. If you've made it this far, thank you. What you've seen is literally the final piece of a bucket list project I envisioned several years ago. To visit a wonder of the world with an immersive 360 camera to let people who have limited means or limited physical capacities to see this amazing wonder for themselves. So if you know anyone that would benefit from this unique opportunity, please do pass it along. The inspiration for this film was my now 89-year-old mother, Phyllis, who may right now, like you, be rafting her way down the Grand Canyon with joy and amazement in her eyes. Thanks for helping me complete the top task on my life's bucket list, y'all. I'm Skojo in 360. Peace.